Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Reina Torres. A federal program that protects about 600,000 young immigrants from deportation faces an uncertain future. The program is called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA. Former President Barack Obama created the program through executive action back in 2012, providing a way for immigrants who were brought to the U.S. as children but who don't have legal authorization to be in the U.S. to live and work here under certain conditions. Many of these young immigrants call themselves dreamers, and just like the monarch butterfly that has become their symbol, many of these dreamers migrated north to America from Mexico and Central America. For years, Republicans have been trying to shut DACA down. The Washington Post reported that President Trump attempted to end the program. In 2020, the Supreme Court restored DACA temporarily, but last month, a federal appeals court issued a ruling that put DACA's future in doubt once again. The case is now in the hands of a federal judge in Texas who's ruled against DACA in the past. That judge is now deciding whether recent updates to the program approved by President Biden are enough to keep the program intact. Amid the uncertainty, the University of California system is considering a proposal to begin hiring immigrant students, even if they don't have DACA work permits. But overall, many DACA recipients are worried another defeat for the program could lead to the end of their rights to work and even possibly to deportation. So what would it mean if the DACA program goes away? And how are dreamers navigating the uncertainty surrounding the program's future? On Point's Jennifer Valdez has more.
Thank you, Reina. And now I would like to introduce our guest. Joining us today, we have attorney Vanessa Manzi on the phone. She developed a passion for immigration law due to her own immigration experience. She became one of the first DACA recipients to be admitted to the California bar. Also joining us, we have Fierro Ruiz, who serves as a federal advocacy and policy manager at United We Dream, which advocates for higher education access, worker protections, and a pathway to citizenship for immigrant youth. Finally, our last panelist is Beatriz Hernandez, who is an organizer for the California Immigrant Policy Center. She is undocumented, meaning she is undocumented with no DACA status. Thank you all for joining us today. So for my first question, I want to start with Vanessa. Legally speaking, what is DACA and what makes it different from being a citizen or a permanent resident?
So what DACA means, it stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So what it means is that the government is basically saying, we're not going to deport you. You're not at interest for us to deport you. That doesn't mean that they won't deport you in the future. And the people who qualify through DACA, the DACA recipients, are able to obtain a work permit for a period of 2 years. And every 2 years, they have to renew this work permit. So it's called temporary immigration status, since it has to be renewed, and it could be taken away at any point.
Okay, so let's take a listen to interviews I conducted with 2 DACA recipients who shared their experiences of uncertainties with the program.
Not having DACA, or I guess for the first 17 years of my life, was very anxious about how I was gonna work. There's nothing wrong with, working janitor jobs. It's just I've always wanted something more. I didn't like the fact that my mom would tell me that was the only job I would be able to get. So I guess when I did get DACA, I loved that I was able to work a job that I wanted to work. I started working at movie theaters and worked at law firms, and even eventually landed a job at NBC Universal. So that's something I'm really proud of. I feel like I would not be able to do that if I didn't have my DACA card.
When I got DACA, it was a big relief because we had the chance to do something with that degree we got. There was a lot of uncertainties of if you got your degree, whether you're going to be able to use it or not because of needing the work permit, the Social Security. So it was something that definitely opened up doors. It's also something that has been a little, the benefits of DACA helped all, but also there weren't many benefits such as financial aid. I signed up to work at UPS because third shift paid for half of your schooling, and then financial aid would took the rest. Well, I wasn't very aware of all the DACA rules since it was something new. And I was working third shift for a couple of months when I found out I wasn't even going to be able to get my schooling paid for. So that was a very big hit on me because I was working hard, staying up late to be able to get my education free, and it affected that. And unfortunately, that did actually put me a lot of, it was one of the reasons why I did drop out, because it was hard working plus paying your own tuition, which I would have to do payment plans, but it was so tough. My parents sacrificed a lot to be able to get me to where I could pay for that. That night, the election with Trump won, I cried that day because that minute I found out he won, I cried because I felt every piece of hope taken away from me. I was going to lose my work permit. I was going to lose my job. I was going to be able to not maintain a good income for my family, for myself. And it was the scariest thing. And if I were to lose that, I feel like a big piece of hope would be taken away from us.
So those are two people who have DACA, but we also want to hear someone who doesn't have DACA. So Beatriz, how did your immigration status play a role in your life?
Thank you for having me. And I mean, the answer, it's really hard to put into words because it has played a huge role in my life when it comes financially, emotionally. Yeah, I think first and foremost, the minute I saw how it was going to impact me for the rest of my life, or, was when I turned 16 years old, and I noticed that a lot of my peers were getting jobs to start, making the way for them to become financially independent from their parents or to help their parents. And I couldn't work a job because I didn't have DACA. And then it got more difficult once I went to college, and I couldn't work an on-campus job like other peers. I was told, like any other student, to build up my resume right, not only to get money, but also to build myself professionally for post-grad life. And when I would enter career fairs, I didn't have the same opportunities as other people because, again, of my status. And then on top of all that, having the anxiety and the uncertainty of not knowing where my future would be after graduating, even though I had a degree, because I'm like, how am I supposed to use it, right? And especially because a lot of people, once DACA came into the picture, it's sort of like a lot of people would look at me and saw that I was a student, my age, and they would sort of assume that I had DACA. And it made it very challenging in school because every time I would go for any kind of resource, they were tailored for DACA students specifically, without realizing that there was a large population of students who didn't qualify for DACA. And then now, to this day, now that I'm a professional, it still affects me, of course, because I don't have the same easiness to like move from job to job like I would, if I needed to.
And if you would be okay sharing, why are you not eligible for DACA?
This program has a lot of restrictions, one of them being the fact that you have to show that you have been in this country since 2007. I believe it's the month is June. And although I had been with my family since March of 2007, we were in Texas and we were visiting family. We couldn't enter school because they told us to wait till the following semester, just because they were about to end the year cycle. So we were just visiting family. At that point, we didn't know whether we were going to stay in this country or we were going to go back to Mexico. My dad was in California. Then as the months went by, we decided to fly to California to reunite with my dad. And because we had been with my family, we didn't have any records of like paying rent, paying cell phones, clinics, nothing. So the only record that we have that we had been present here in this country was of July 2007, so a month after from the airplane tickets that we had. And then really like we were able to show that we had been here starting like August because of like we were going to school, we were paying rent, etc. So I literally missed it by a month, which is very unfortunate.
Okay, and for Vanessa, what will happen if DACA recipients lose their deportation protections if the DACA program is terminated, and how will it affect those enrolled in it?
So if the DACA program is terminated, the person would basically go back to fully undocumented status, which means that they can be deported at any point for any reason. It'll greatly affect those who are currently part of the program, including myself, as I feel like DACA offers a sense of protection as well as the ability to be lawfully employed. So many DACA recipients would lose their jobs and will lose the sense of security. A lot of DACA recipients are also now parents, so it can affect their U.S. citizen children as they are not going to be able to provide for their family. And I also think it'll greatly affect the American economy as many companies, many big names, including Apple, Amazon, Tesla, they all employed DACA recipients. So their companies would be out of employees, which would be very difficult to replace in a short amount of time.
Okay, so for Karen, I would like to set the stage with this question for you. For the audience, can you explain the evolution of DACA and how did it evolve into its current state?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that DACA was something that community and, immigrant youth fought for and won. Back before even the Obama administration, there were immigrant youth like ourselves who were very vocal about the fact that, they had lived in this country, they were a part of their schools, of their communities, and there was really no solution or no answer to the fact that they would be going into a workplace or a workforce without those protections, right? And so immigrant youth from across the nation organized. They made sure that we had raised political power around the issue. And eventually, in 2012, Obama passed what is the DACA memo, right, which instituted the DACA program. Since then, and honestly, from the very beginning, DACA has been under Republican attack. And we've seen that play out in DACA being involved in court case after court case. And so that's how you hear about a lot of folks who, are very much tired of being in this political limbo of not knowing, what the future of the DACA program is, what the future of immigrant youth, who have been frozen out of the DACA program because of certain court cases will be. And so where we are now in terms of the DACA program is the program itself was frozen, meaning that no new initial applications would be accepted since last year by Judge Hainan in the Texas court. Since then, DACA has been slowly making its way back into back up the chain of command, right, of court cases, and is essentially we're in a challenge of deciding whether the DACA program itself is legal or not. Just this past month, the Fifth Circuit Court of the United States made a decision that the case itself is illegal, but because of the U.S. government's attempt to essentially institutionalize it through a new rule within USCIS, the court itself was sent back to the same judge who decided to freeze the program and not allow new applicants to apply, to make a decision on the final rule and whether that is legal or not. And so we're really very much at a standstill as how we can continue to fight for this program in the courts. We know that it'll go back to the Fifth Circuit Court, who already decided that it's legal. From there, it'll go up to the Supreme Court, who is a majority conservative court. And so we're not hopeful that it'll survive going to the Supreme Court. So right now, we're really at a state where our only way to win and to protect immigrant youth who have benefited or who could have benefited from this program is to fight a legislative fight.
So last month, a federal judge, Andrew Hannon, declared DACA illegal, but kept the program alive for now. So, Vanessa, what are the most important things for people to understand or know about this ruling?
The most important issues to understand about the Hannon ruling is that it doesn't touch the DACA renewal. It only touches the initial. And I know it's really weird, but it's the only issue in the case was whether the program could be restarted so new applications could be filed. So basically, it was filed in Texas, very Republican, very much a Republican Trump-supported action, and it basically dealt with DACA for initials. Hannon said since the beginning that he was not willing to touch the renewals because he felt like the Republicans filed the case late in the game. So right now the program is still going on for renewals. I feel like the Biden administration will fight as much as possible to keep the program alive. It is going to the Supreme Court once again, so we're waiting to see if the Supreme Court is going to hear it and when they're going to hear it. So we're going to be waiting for that ruling. But for the meantime, if you do have DACA, please renew it, because if you don't renew it and you let it lapse for a year, you're going to be completely out of the program. And for those who did not get to apply, just wait. There's still hope. The Biden administration did submit final rulings. So it should address the decision from Hannon as far as the legalese behind it. So hopefully the Supreme Court will dismiss it and new applications will be able to be filed soon.
Okay, so you mentioned about renewing DACA. So what should DACA recipients and undocumented youth do right now as they're awaiting the decision on the uncertainty of DACA?
So if you currently have DACA, my advice is renew it. You can submit it up to 4 months before it expires. Please don't let it expire. Continue to renew it. There's a lot of organizations, including different consulates, that will help you with the fee if you need help with the $495 of the immigration fee. As far as undocumented youth that are waiting the decision, my advice is if you haven't filed, then start thinking about the evidence that needs to be there. Talk to attorneys, talk to nonprofits, and maybe start gathering the evidence just in case the program does reopen. Then you have everything ready to go. If you did file and while immigration was processing it, the Texas decision came down and they couldn't continue to process it, then just stay in touch with your attorney or the nonprofit that helped you, or stay in touch and in tune with the news, because if it does get restarted, they're going to be the first in line to be processed.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. So for Karen, opponents of DACA say DACA and the DREAM Act encourage more illegal immigration and contributes to the surge of unaccompanied minors and families illegally entering the U.S. So what do you say to the opponents of DACA?
I would say to check their information because the program itself is written where if you, like Beatriz shared, if you have been here since the program was initiated, that's who's essentially eligible for the program, right? And so the program itself isn't as open as we would like. I think from an advocacy perspective, we would definitely like the program to be expanded for the date that people must have been in the US to be expended as well, because either folks did not arrive who do qualify, or what is actually happening now is you have undocumented youth who are graduating high school who were in the same positions that we were when we were in high school, who were not born actually during that period. And so the program itself is completely outdated. We need to revamp it. We need to expand it. And overall, we do need to provide permanent solutions outside of this 2-year Band-Aid that we have with DACA. And so I would say that the program itself is not written for that cause, right? But there are youth here who do need solutions and who do need that pathway to make sure that we continue to contribute to the community that we are a part of and can continue building up this country.
And as an advocate for DACA, why do you believe Congress has not enacted the program or made a permanent solution for undocumented immigrants?
I think it's honestly, they don't feel the urgency of it like they did before. We know that there have been bills that have been passed in the House that would essentially provide a pathway to citizenship for a majority of immigrant youth, especially folks who have DACA, but it goes beyond that. Those have passed in the House. They were very close to passing in the Senate last year through the reconciliation process. However, because of 2 Democrat senators, it failed to act. And so we're really in a moment where we need to remind these people who are representing their communities in Congress, right, that we are here. We feel the urgency. We're very much tired of living in a political limbo that's ruled by the courts and ruled by the legislative branch. And we need solutions, and we need solutions this year. And that's, I'll just add, from United We Dream, we're going to be pushing for permanent solutions for immigrant youth and DACA recipients in the must-pass omnibus bill that's happening at the end of this year, and really focusing on making sure that folks know that there's an urgency to have a permanent solution.
Beatriz, I see that you're clapping. Would you like to share why?
Yeah, I mean, it's very relieving, and it gives me a lot of hope for for all undocumented immigrants, knowing that there's advocate organizations out there like United We Dream and so many other organizations like doing this advocacy work that is very much needed. And knowing that we're not going to give up, right? We may be like pushed down and, put in like the limbo, but we're still going to show up, and we're going to let those in power know that this is what they need to do.
Okay. Beatriz, you were quoted recently in an article about the idea for University California schools to hire undocumented workers even without DACA status. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that happening, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's happening. It's really happening. And I say that because when I was at UC Merced, I knew of a few folks who didn't have DACA like myself, which I actually convened together for us to share our experiences and having failed. But there was many instances where I talked to different, I even talked to the interim chancellor, I talked to the career center, to let them know, like, this is my situation and that there's other folks out there who are going through this. Like, so what are you going to do about it? It's great for us to go to class and get the knowledge that we need, but you're not helping us like build up for that post-grad life. And what are we going to do? And many times I was just told, like, there's nothing that we can do. We're going to look into it and so on and so on. And I'm just like, I feel that I'm just happy that finally it's getting the attention it deserves. And like, I think when it comes to having a campaign on an issue, like that's where like the power starts building up, right? Like having a campaign to show it to the public and for people to understand what it means. So I'm really, like I said, I'm really hopeful, and I feel like this campaign has a lot of I don't know. I think it's a good campaign, and I'm excited for what's to come.
Okay. And for Vanessa, undocumented immigrants face significant barriers such as not having work permits. From a legal standpoint, what do you advise undocumented immigrants who may not have a way of achieving legal status?
Well, my number one advice is to always consult with an attorney, whether it's at a nonprofit or a private firm, because immigration laws constantly change. And although 2 years ago they might have told you that you don't qualify for something, maybe now you do. And also your situation might change. I also advise them to continue to pursue whatever it is that they want to pursue. And also to talk to employers about different ways that they may be able to employ them. So I don't know if I should say this on the record, but my paralegal currently is undocumented. So I employ her as an independent contractor. She got an IT number, and we were able to bypass many issues through that. So she wants to go to law school. She needed the experience, and she applied for a position, and just not having status should not stop you. When I didn't have status before DACA, I also would talk to the employers about doing the same thing and hiring me as an independent contractor. So I would say continue to pursue your dreams, and hopefully soon enough we'll have some sort of immigration reform, or your situation might change where you're able to obtain an immigration benefit.
Okay, and for Beatriz, if you don't have DACA, does the decision to end DACA affect you?
Well, like you mentioned, I don't have it, but I think I'm not sure how this quote goes, but I strongly believe that when there's an attack on a community member, it's an attack to everyone. So although I may not have it myself, if DACA ends, it just means that we're getting pushback against our undocumented community. And that is something that I do not stand for. Many of my peers, close friends do have DACA. And because I know what it's like not to have it, I wouldn't want them to go through that. So again, it doesn't directly impact me, but definitely in many ways it does.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank all our 3 guests, Vanessa, Karen, and Beatriz, for being a part of this panel.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jennifer, for inviting us.
Thank you. You're watching On Point. We'll be right back.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings at 5:30. You can watch us on LA 36 and Santa Clarita Valley Television. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Reina Torres.